Miles?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was just saying one thing.
Yeah, we need to
I
start.
can't
Yep.
hear you.
You can't hear me?
You're coming in
Miles, I can't
fine.
hear you.
Yeah.
Coming in fine for us.
Okay.
All right, I got you now.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Good
Hey
evening.
there.
Hi, Marty.
Hi.
Am I on? Anyone see me? No.
Oh,
Yep.
Hey, you made it.
Yep.
Yeah, I just tried to get on a Zoom call in Tokyo and nothing worked. I could not get in.
Oh,
Did you
okay.
take the cover off your camera?
Yeah, it wouldn't let me, Zoom wouldn't let me sign in.
Oh,
I have no idea why.
Don't take it personally, hon.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll go ahead.
Okay, there I
All
am.
right, there you
there we go.
Hi, Arthur.
We'll
gotta
go
do
ahead
is
and
click.
get started. If you can put me on mute just so we don't get the feedback, that'd be great. Okay, so this is the Village of Martin's Additions Council meeting, Thursday, May 7th. First thing we're gonna do is hear from residents. Do we have any resident comments?
I have a question.
Okay,
I've been concerned, as you know, for a while about the flooding along the south side of the building there. And I know that the landlord got out there and cleaned it up and it was better for a while, but with all the rain we've been having, I wanted to ask Niles and the council, has that area been flooding again? Do we need to speak to the landlord again?
So the last I looked at it, it seemed fine. I didn't see any flooding when I was around there. I'm aware of this issue and I'll keep tabs on it, but it didn't look like there was any recently.
That's great news. Thank you for following up on that.
All right.
all right. Thanks, Marty. Next.
Jeff, if you want to go ahead, you have your hand raised.
Awesome, thanks. I'm sorry I don't have the video this evening. I'm kind of out and about and don't want to give anyone motion sickness. Just want to first just thank everyone. Just, reiterating, our family was able to vote very safely and confidently, and that process is amazing. So just want to just acknowledge that for the record. Also, I just want to put something out there. We know that there are folks within our community who are just doing some really amazing things, and they don't seek recognition, but just putting on the table that perhaps as we move forward, we don't know exactly how long, we're going to be in this situation, but perhaps as a village, we might want to consider some spotlight or recognition awards for those folks who've really gone above and beyond in terms of whether it's community service or other devotion towards MBA. Over.
Okay, thanks. Next, anybody else? Niles, can you tell us something?
If anyone who's on the phone, I don't see any other hands raised. So if anybody who's on the phone wants to speak now.
Hello, Tiffany, and hello, Niles, and hello, everybody. This is the weatherman talking.
Hi
Hi,
there,
Keith.
Keith.
Hi, Keith.
And hello, everybody. If you're interested in the weather here over the next few days, it's going to get very interesting because there is actually the possibility that you could see a few snowflakes early Saturday morning, late Friday night. Now, as crazy as that might sound, that's a possibility. And we're going to have some very unseasonably cold weather move in here with our normal temperatures in the 70s. It's only going to be struggling to get out of the 40s here on Saturday. So that'll be more conversational snow than anything else if anybody actually sees it. The latest date that anybody ever officially saw snow in the D.C. area was back in 1906 on May the 10th. That's the latest, and then that was just a trace. The latest measurable snow was a half an inch, and that was as late as April 28th.
I remember
Anyway,
the
there's an
1906 one.
Oh, come on, Arthur. There is an upside, however, to this cool, wet spring pattern that we've been having so far. And that's that, with people sheltering in place and the rain, the pollen count has become very low and with fewer people driving, that's actually led to the cleanest air in decades in the Washington metropolitan area, according to the Council of Governments. So that's all good. Anyway, after mid-May, get ready for 70s and 80s and some beautiful weather. And this is a beautiful evening, and let's enjoy what's left of it because rain will be coming back in tomorrow afternoon. So I thank you all, and let's proceed with the meeting.
All right, thank you, Keith. Any other
You're welcome.
resident comments? Okay, so before we go on, I think there's one phone number, Niles, that we're not sure, or one or two.
Yeah. So for those on the phone, can you just state your name and who's on the phone, and that would be for the roll, just so that we know who's on the meeting.
You want to read out the numbers?
Yeah, certainly. I'll start with 301-654-0123.
Keith Allen,
Oh, sorry, that was Keith.
3403 Turner Lane.
Perfect. And then
That's a great phone number, if I may say so.
and then 301-767-5356.
Monty Boland of 3405 Turner Lane.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Monty
hear.
Boland.
Monty Boland. Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think that we're good there then. Okay.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so the next is we, as you guys know, we competed a financial processes and review procedure. We had a contract, and Karen or Gray, I'm gonna mess up. Is it Wayrich? Cronin and Sora won, and they have been working with us over the last 45 days or so, and they are here with us tonight to present the findings from their work.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting us via Zoom. I got to tell you, this is the first time I have done a Zoom municipal presentation. So there's always a first for everything. Yay
right.
for Martin's Edition.
Yeah.
Gray and I were really excited to work with the village and to help you go through your internal control process, and then also help you maybe come up with some better best practices that you can implement to enhance the internal controls that you already have. So I am going to start out by saying that when we did our review, we met with the village council in the beginning, found out exactly what the controls were supposed to be, and based on that, we developed a set of tests that Gray was primarily involved in coordinating with Niles and with the rest of the council. During this process, we looked at a total of 70 transactions, and they were all from the beginning of the fiscal year through March the 7th of 2020. So we looked at a fairly significant portion of the transactions, considering how small the village itself is and how little activity really occurs month by month. Basically, we found out that based on our report, that most of the controls that the council believed were in place were actually operating as they intended. Of the 30 cash disbursements transactions that we looked at, there was one where we were not able to collect all of the information that we thought we should have. It was actually an automatic withdrawal, so there really wasn't a check that needed to be signed. And I believe there was missing, let me just check my notes. The invoice wasn't available. We were able to look at it later on. But there was a description. There wasn't an invoice, but there was a description of what the payment was for. But other than that, no issues with the cash disbursements. When we looked at the cash receipts, Everything was in good order there. We looked at 30 different cash receipts. Again, one exception, there was one permit fee where we could not find the supporting documentation. So 1 out of 30, again, not a bad statistical sample. And then we looked at 10 different payroll transactions. All of the payroll transactions appeared to have been authorized appropriately. The only finding that we found during the payroll process was that the police officers, apparently their rate of pay had been adjusted at some point in time, but it was never officially documented anywhere that the pay rate had increased. So all in all, everything is working pretty much the way that the village would have expected it to be working, which is always good news. Things don't always turn out this way, especially when we're working with smaller municipalities and organizations. There tends to be a tendency to allow things to kind of slip by and go, well, we know that person, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it. I will tell you that your controls are only as good as your adherence to them. And at this point, it appears that you are adhering to the internal controls that were set in place. Now, based on all of our processes, Ray, did you have anything to add to that since you were actually involved in looking at the transactions?
Yeah, basically everything seemed like all the controls were, again, they were being adhered to and everything. And even with the findings that we had, for example, the pay rate increases for the police officers, that's something that the council knew about. It's not like everybody is just finding this out as we're doing these procedures. The council is aware of it and they were being approved by the council. It's just in the sense of like when your audit comes around, if it's not formally documented anywhere, it essentially didn't happen. So I just wanted to reiterate to the residents listening in that the council was aware of any pay increases or cash disbursements going out the door. It was really more of just a formal documentation finding.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Other than that, we did have some recommendations, and I'm not sure if that's something that you wanted to address in this meeting. I want to take the village's lead on how to proceed with the rest of this evening.
No, Karen, I think going over the kind of the top lines would be good so that folks know what did you look at and what can be put in place. I think you guys also you have a very good understanding now of how small we are. And the one thing I would ask is, there were a few terms in here that had to be explained to me because I'm not a CPA. So I would say if you could use the language of the vernacular, that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah, I'm so used to using these things and sometimes I just figure that everybody knows what they mean. So, when we looked at the cash disbursements are any time that the village writes a check or issues a payment to an outside vendor or an outside person. So that's where we were looking at those disbursements, those payments that were being made. Now the controls that are in place is that there is a cover sheet and each one of the transactions needs to be approved by a member of the village council. They're submitted, I'm sorry?
2 members of the village council.
Yes, there are 2 authorized signers.
Okay. And, and then they are submitted for payment through bill.com, which is an automatic payment service associated with QuickBooks. And then payments and checks are issued electronically. So they are then, they require signatures, 2 signatures by village council members. So, those are all great controls to have in place. There's multiple layers of someone looking at a transaction before it goes out the door. Then on top of it, once the transaction has been processed and it clears the bank, there is also someone monitoring the bank statement and looking at those canceled checks and reconciling the bank account to make sure that something didn't change between when the check was issued, authorized and issued, and then it cleared the bank. And then we're also looking to make sure that the transaction is recorded in the books and records of the village in an appropriate categorization based on the budget for the year. Is that a better explanation for disbursements?
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Karen, there was one of your recommendations that I liked has to do with the payroll and perhaps setting up a separate bank account for payroll.
Yeah.
Which, and with a limit on it, so that whoever is out there filling in the payroll numbers, it doesn't all of a sudden run away with all our money. I knew that payroll was a weak spot, but I had no idea how weak or what to do about it. So that was a good suggestion.
Yeah, the village does have substantial cash reserves. And right now, the payroll is being, while it's authorized by the village council, you do still have an outside person who is entering the payroll transactions. Now, you will see what happens after the fact, and you would see the money when it came out. However, if someone else, a third party, has access to your payroll account, they really could go in there and authorize themselves a $100,000 payroll check. And it would absolutely clear the bank statement. And that person could then take that $100,000 and disappear. And you wouldn't have any recourse because the money had already left your bank account. So there's really no way to stop or prevent that. However, if you were to have a bank account with limited resources, something that's not much larger than your typical average payroll on, a payroll cycle, then that would limit the amount of funds that someone could authorize in any one payroll transaction, and that would stop someone from giving themselves a $100,000 payroll check. So, with cash disbursements, something else that we looked at and we think is a really good recommendation is to look at the credit cards that the actual village holds. You can limit your spending limit on a credit card and say, we don't want any more than $4,000 or $5,000 credit limit. What we all know as individuals, banks will constantly raise your credit limit unless you put a hold on it until them to stop. So you could have a person, a credit card, go out and purchase, $15,000, $20,000 worth of gift cards, which then are out and about. You wouldn't necessarily know about it until you got the credit card statement a month later, 30 days later. So, if you were to put a limit and say, we really don't ever have anyone from the village charge more than $5,000 in a 30-day period, stop it and hold it at $5,000. It's all about limiting your exposure.
And I think just for those who are on the call, the only folks who have credit cards in the village are the manager and the treasurer. And it's not been a tradition for the treasurer to even have, it's just been for the staff to have. So ideally we'd go back to that system, and I'm with...
And I think there's a $5,000 limit on the credit card right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But it's just something to monitor.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And writing it down, as you have said, documenting the policy, documenting the process, so that, okay, somebody else needs to get a credit card, that it's very clear this is going to be the max that's going on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, the other area that we looked at was cash receipts, and cash receipts are the monies that are coming into the village. So mainly when you have permit fees that are issued, anything or licenses that are issued, those would probably be the main times when the village is getting something that's not an electronic deposit from the state of Maryland or from the county. So in those instances where you are getting them from private citizens, right now, a citizen would have the ability, a private person would have the ability to bring cash into the village office to pay for a permit fee. We're recommending that the council put in place a policy that would restrict the acceptance of cash funds from individuals. So you would not be able to walk in and say, I need a dumpster permit, here is my $25 or whatever the fee is. It would have to be either via a check or a credit card deposit. The reason we're recommending this is that we all know cash is the most vulnerable asset that you can possibly have. Checks can be locked and stored. Credit card payments are all electronic. So it would help not having those cash funds be available. And quite honestly, our understanding is that very few fees are collected via cash. So hopefully once that's, brought out to the village and the citizens are made aware of that, I think that they would understand why you are putting that in place and why it's a good policy not to be accepting cash payments.
Hey Ron, this is something we just talked about, or we wanted to put on your radar of when we update some of our permit forms. Is this something we can just put on the permit form, like check only?
Sure, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Karen.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to think if there were any other high level recommendations that we had. The only other thing that I would say is, just being careful and making sure that all of this is memorialized.
Yeah.
So right now, you have this listing of what your policies and procedures are in place. It would be good to have a manual set in place. Turnover happens. And with an office as small as yours, it's good to have something in place that's going to set the good foundation for your internal controls, and then be there for whoever may be someone that comes in after Niles, when he retires 25 years from now.
Yes.
So.
Excellent. Any other council members have questions for Karen or Gray before we move on? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I know I've seen you presenting at MML for years, so it was a pleasure to have you guys here, providing your expertise here. And Gray, I know that you and Niles had to work through some details to get this done. So I want you to know we appreciate all the effort.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. This was definitely a very interesting way to have to do an audit, with all of the social distancing that was going on. It made it a little more challenging than normal.
Definitely.
So, but anyway, look forward to seeing you all in the future. And if there's anything else that we can do to help the village, please let us know.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I made a mistake and I jumped over the committee reports to get to our financial review because I was so excited about that. Let's see, Marty, you're on the line, and I don't think there's anybody else. Paula, the tree supervisor's here. Paula, Marty, if you don't mind, I'll ask Paula to go first, and then I think elections might take longer than trees.
You got that right.
Just a little bit. Basically, we had another quiet month here in the village. There was a storm that came through about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and there were according to Paul Wolf, our village arborist, 4 to 5 Kwanzaa cherry trees suffered some damage during the storm. he has trimmed broken limbs from the cherry trees, and he is continuing to make progress on Turner Lane, where there was some tree work that was required. Paul basically said that he's been somewhat limited by folks who are parked in front of their houses, of course, because of the stay-at-home order. So the progress along Turner Lane has been slow because of cars that are naturally parked along Turner Lane. For villagers who don't know Paul, he makes frequent trips through the Village of Martin's Additions, at least once a week, often twice a week, and certainly he is here right after there is a storm event. He wanted everybody to know that the state of Maryland regards his service as an essential service. And anyway, it was wonderful catching up with him, and we just look forward to another good season. So thanks very much. Any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. I'll mute my microphone.
Okay, great. I don't see anybody from the CEC, or I don't think, Keith, I don't think you guys have had another meeting. So I think I'll go.
Walkability, we did have a walkability meeting.
Yes, let's talk about walking.
But we had our first meeting, had some presentations. We'll have another one in June, first just a village people, and then the consultant will come in two weeks later to have a full-scale one. So that's it with walkability.
Arthur, I know that you are one of the council liaisons, both you and Katya. Do you want to let everybody know there is a chairperson for the walkability committee?
The committee chose as its chair Peter Kahn, and as the secretary, and details what happened, Larry Wasson.
Okay, thanks. All right, CEC, we talked about ethics, nothing here, so elections.
Just before that, you want to mention about celebration, or do we want to?
Just do that when you get to your.
Sounds good.
Okay. Go ahead, Marty.
Okay, thank you. I hope this is the last long elections committee report we'll need this year. And I will try to keep it as organized as I can. Niles, I'll give you the written copy of this. I'll email it to you after the meeting.
Thank you.
First, again, the election committee is very pleased to be able to commend Niles again for very capable assistance with all the staff support work as we're handling this 2020 election by mail during this pandemic. It's been a lot of work, and Niles, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
We are now in the midst of the voting period. There are a lot of moving parts in the mechanics of any village election, and we're voting by mail for the first time here, so we got more moving parts even than usual. But most of the components appear to be working well, which is a great relief to Niles and me. We have about 600 residents on the voter roll, and they all received, or almost all received, their ballot packets on time during the week of the April 27th through May 1st. That's good news. And Niles and I have been working together to implement some sound procedures to first verify the voter roll, and then deal with any ballot issues that may come up. And in the last 2 weeks, we've had a few, but we've only had about 15 requests for missing or replacement ballots, and that's a very good rate. We've been working together as a team to answer residents' questions, and I think it's gone quite well. I'm quite pleased. And we, of course, held the Meet the Candidates Community Forum. More than 30 residents participated on April 23rd, which was a good turnout. And residents submitted about 20 questions in advance, which is a good number. And so there was a lot of village participation, which tells us that the announcements and information we put out were, in fact, being read. And I have to praise a couple of committee members here. Haley Soifer, one of our election committee members, I thought did an excellent job of monitoring the forum by Zoom. Very graceful, very professional. Lori Mitchell was the timekeeper. Niles provided the tech support. It's good teamwork there. The topics, as you may recall, some of you were present for the forum, range from current concerns about the pandemic to better village communication systems, to the village's personnel procedures, environmental issues, questions about a stronger ordinance for the installation of the 5G networks. It's quite a wide-ranging discussion, and the audio is posted on the village website. We also designed and produced this new 6-page special 2020 elections section for the May Village newsletter. It had the candidates' final public campaign statements and a whole lot of other important election information for the voters, including detailed information about voting for mail, all in one place in a clear and well-organized format. And Niles got the newsletter out with the news section in it on schedule on Monday, the 27th of April. The committee will consider doing a similar special election section next year, again, in the village newsletter. And all 4 candidates did participate, so I think it was helpful to the village, residents and to the candidates. The final date for residents to mail their ballots, I think you all know, is next Friday, May 15th. And to be counted, the ballots must be received at the processing center by 5 p.m. on May 22nd. The election committee will continue to post reminders and updates about the election on Constant Contact. We'll continue to answer candidates' questions and ensure that accurate election information is up on the website. So we're very committed here to the community education and information part of this project, as well as the voting mechanics. Now, next steps. When Electech has completed the automatic ballot vote count, what happens then is that the election committee has to meet to review the election report from Electech, the company, and evaluate any non-conforming ballots. That's envelopes that didn't open because the ballot security number was wrong, or whatever reason, the ballots that couldn't be counted automatically. Once we review the non-conforming ballots, the committee will do that as a whole. Then we certify the election and announce the final voting results. We expect to have the election results hopefully late May or very early June. But again, it partly depends on what happens with our company processing it. I do want to have one sort of just practical election management note here. The election committee had to handle a huge amount of work on April 23rd and 24th because the schedule was so tightly front-loaded this year. In that single 2-day period, the committee had to, and I'm going to just give you a short list here. This isn't even the whole list. We had to edit and approve the first draft of the official ballot packet from Eclectic, because Eclectic was supposed to get it to us the week before, but didn't. So that arrives on April 23rd. We had to compile and organize the final list of the community forum questions from residents. And like I said, there were 20-some of those. We had to prepare the logistics for the community forum. We had to then conduct the forum by Zoom and call in for the first time. And again, Haley did a great job, but it took some prep work there. Then we had to write and approve the committee article for the April 24th weekly wrap-up reporting on the forum. That's the next day. We had to review and correct the final proofs from the official election packet back from Eclectic, also on the 24th. We had to receive, confirm, and compile the candidates' final campaign statements on the 24th after the forum to include in the new special section. And then we had to put the special section together by close of business on the 24th. It was incredible 2 days. And we all have, jobs, and 4 of the 5 of us have kids. So it was very difficult. And I just want to note for the record that it would be advisable in the future to spread out the timing of the forum and the newsletter next year. Scheduling them so closely together really did impose an unduly heavy workload burden on a very small village committee. We did it, but it was quite a stretch. Moving forward here, next steps. The village manager, Niles, will conduct a final contract compliance review with Eclectic after the completion of this election. Eclectic did make one significant error in processing the ballot packets that got mailed out to our residents. The company did not rotate the order of the candidates' names on the ballot. They were instructed to do so, and I know that Niles filed up on it. The president of the firm has apologized to the village manager for the mistake. I want to make it clear here for the record again that failing to do the rotational name order on the ballot does not invalidate the election. It does not invalidate the election. The Maryland Code of Election Law does not require the rotational ballots. But rotating the names is considered a best practice in terms of election mechanics. It makes elections fairer by preventing positional bias, voting bias. And it's a standard practice for Martin's Additions. We rotate the names. So that was an error on Eclectic's part. And Niles and I have discussed this. There were also a few other less important contract performance issues, minor things. And the village will deal with this in the manager's detailed contract compliance review with Eclectic at the end of the election. Are there any questions about that piece? I think that's the proper way to handle it, and I thank Niles for doing that. Last piece. There was also some concern on the listserv about the election-related resolutions that were adopted at the April 16th council meeting. So in the interest of full transparency and clarity, which is the election committee's middle name, we note the following three things. First, yes, the council did adopt the election committee's chair's, recommended revision to Charter Resolution 2020-1 at the April 16th council meeting. Thank you all for adopting it. The council corrected that language in that resolution to maintain the independence of the election committee and make it clear that the election committee, not the council, is the one who conducts the elections. So thank you to the council for clarifying that and correcting that resolution. Number two, the election committee did not approve or recommend the provision in Ordinance Resolution 2024-1 about canceling uncontested elections. For the reasons noted, I think, at the last meeting, that's not generally considered a great idea to cancel elections. The provision that was in that ordinance resolution will expire in June 2020, has no effect on the 2020 election or any future village elections. Just want to clarify that. And third, that we do expect, speaking for the entire election committee, that the council will consult with the election committee before considering changes in the VMA election ordinance or the election section of the charter in the future. And we thank you for the consultation. We think that that's an important practical thing to do because the election committee does have a lot of information to share. Respectively submitted by the chair of the 2020 election committee, Marty Langland, May 2020. That's it. Wasn't too long, was it?
No, thanks, Marty. Appreciate it.
Any questions? Okay, we're good.
All right. Great. So back to the schedule, the building administrator's report. Doug, are you here?
Doug?
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
I just want to note that the agenda says 8:06 p.m. and my phone says 8:06 p.m. So we're fantastic. Go, Doug.
Go ahead, Doug.
All right, good evening. Several things to go over tonight. At 3506 Bradley, they have submitted a building permit. We're still waiting for the county to approve the plans, and the applicant has submitted a couple of dates for the information meeting, which will be sometime probably the end of May. At 7204 Chestnut Street, the stop work order was issued in March and it's still in effect. The applicant on April 29th submitted a waiver for the rear setback for the addition that was previously built, and that hearing is scheduled for Monday, May 18th. At 7210 Chestnut, the construction has been completed. The county has signed off on the building permit, but they haven't closed their sediment control permit yet, so the village building permit is still open on that one.
Doug, why haven't they closed that?
Well, I guess because the ground hasn't stabilized yet and the grass hasn't grown, so the sediment control inspector, until everything is stabilized, there's no more sediment leaving, he has his permit open.
Okay, just it's,
Okay.
you guys are having to continue to monitor it, so, okay.
Yes, I check it every few days to see if it's still open, and as of Tuesday, we're still open.
Okay.
At 7200 Delfield, which is on the corner of Taylor Street, they applied for a building permit. I've reviewed the plans with them. They're making some revisions to the plans, and we're waiting for the county comments to come back. The information meeting with the residents has not been scheduled. At 7200 Summit Avenue on the corner of Taylor Street, the applicant homeowner has filed for several variances for front and side yard setbacks along Summit and Taylor Street, and on the north side property, they're looking to add a new porch and bay window on the front, and in addition on the right side. So they've applied for a variance. That variance has not been scheduled yet. Niles and I met with him, had a phone conversation with him the other day, and they're making some revisions to the plans to comply with the code. At 3412 Taylor Street. I spoke to the contractor earlier this week. They're hoping to get a final county inspection sometime either at the end of this week or next week, so that should be closed out soon. And at 3407 Thornapple, their permit expires in May, and they are putting together a request for a building permit extension. And that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Have you heard anything more from the state regarding Brookville Road?
From the state?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So
They said they were going to be studying it, so knowing how they operate, I would guess they probably won't be anywhere ready to make any recommendations to us until probably June. But
okay.
I can give them a call.
Well, let Niles reach out. I know they did do some repaving at Quincy. I'm not sure that it solved the water problems. So I'll ask Niles to follow up and just make sure that we keep using your expertise as we go along.
Okay.
Doug, we
Yes.
we have a variance meeting coming up on May 18th. That's set.
Yes. That's
Okay.
for the 7204 Chestnut?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I presume we'll be getting some kind of a packet from the applicants before that.
Niles
Yes,
will get it to you. Go
I
ahead.
will get it to you. So,
Okay.
all right.
Anything, council members, anything else for Doug? Okay, thanks, Doug.
All right.
Okay, Arthur, you're up. It's a big
Okay.
night for the treasurer, big night.
Tonight's the night we pass our annual budget. It has been before the community and the council for the last 2 months. I have not heard any objections from anybody or any suggestions or deletions, additions, modifications of any kind. So, from residents or from council members. So I presume that we're on track to pass the budget tonight.
You want to talk a little bit about it in general for the fiscal year 21?
I forgot what was in it since a couple of months ago when we first put it together. But it puts the village in a very good position for the coming year.
Yes.
The one thing I added to the treasurer's report for tonight is that the revenues that we are expecting, let me enlarge my version here. The next major receipt of revenues that we get from the state will occur at the end of May. So we don't know until then what, if anything, the current economic climate will have on our revenue. But even then, it will be from the previous quarter, so it will be just the standard withholding and scheduled payments that people are making. So we really won't know for many months what the current economic downturn will mean for our own revenues. So the next few big ones should just be from earlier in the year.
Okay, thanks, Arthur.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Arthur, they can't retrospectively reduce payments because they see what's coming up going
No.
forward.
No, the way there is a schedule of activities that they do every month of what it is that they actually distribute. So they're distributing money that came in like 3 to 6 months ago. So they're not doing anything prospectively. Everything is retrospective.
Okay. Anybody else questions for Arthur? If not, we can go ahead and move to adopt. Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've gone through our waiting period. We're going to move to adopt our budget for fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021. It's ordinance number 2020-3-2. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll move that we adopt ordinance number 2020-3-2.
I'll second that.
Can we vote?
Tiffany, do you want to include the tax rate resolution in the motion as well?
I thought you were
That's
going to
a
make me
separate
do.
document.
I thought you were going to make me do them as two.
But either way, you can do them as one motion if you like.
Okay, so let's just keep going. So all in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? No? Okay, so the ordinance is adopted. And then the second document before us is the tax resolution. Arthur, you didn't mention this earlier, so you want to explain that we're not changing anything?
We have separate tax rates for personal property tax, for real property taxes, and several others. None of these are changing this year. We are keeping everything as is, and so the only thing that might change people's tax bills from the village is a change of assessment of their property, but the tax rate itself is not changing. So we're just holding that as it was. So that's what we are, but we are required to pass this every year. So we are passing a resolution that maintains the tax rates at the present level.
Okay. So, can I have a motion to adopt resolution 2020-3-3?
As treasurer, I will move that we adopt the budget resolution, the resolution that passes the tax rates.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, so the tax resolution's been adopted as well. Thanks, Arthur. Let's just briefly mention, I know that we're gonna do kind of end of year, going back to the current fiscal year, FY 2020 amendments at our next meeting. So Arthur, I know you and Niles have been kind of starting to track that. And we'll make sure that folks get to hear about that in advance of the June meeting and then take care of it for the end of the year in June. Anything else on finances?
Nothing that I can think of. I keep saying that the village finances are in pretty good shape, and we should weather any storm that comes in fairly good shape.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Arthur.
Okay.
Okay, Niles, you're up.
Certainly. All right. So a lot going on in the office. Marty talked a little bit about all the election stuff. So the office is supporting all of that and has been working diligently on that. You obviously heard from the internal controls study or review, and so we had a good conversation over that with them, and you heard from that, and I thought that process went very well. And then I'm going to another thing that I want to mention is that about the summer celebration, the 4th of July-ish event. I talked to the county. They, with all of the COVID-19 things, they are holding very firm to the crowd requirements. So, like, until those are dropped, they are saying that they will not. They're not necessarily going to approve any event until those are dropped. So, as of now, it looks like that might not happen this year. We're still working on a couple of things just in case those restrictions do get lifted in a relatively close enough time, talking about vendors and things like that. So, but as of now, that's sort of how it looks, and that was from a conversation that I had yesterday. Yeah. And then just going off on a couple of things, cybersecurity. I had my full interview with our cybersecurity consultants this week. And then we're going to be organizing a couple of other activities, including council member interviews and a questionnaire, which will include some of our contractors as well, on how they use our technology and making sure it's secure. The GIS update, I sent several things to them to update with the map and with the data, just to make it more accurate, including street lights and other things that we mentioned at the last meeting. landscaping. They're finishing up on the Cummings Lane community garden, installing a bench and trash can and a plaque to Richard Krajcik. Trying to get the pronunciation right. And so all of that is happening this week. The building administrator RFP closed today. We put it on our website, the state website, and also on MML's website. We got one proposal, which was Montgomery Consulting, a current building administrator, and I'm recommending to the council that we approve that as our vendor going forward, and we can negotiate that contract and work on that.
That works for me. Does anybody have any other comments on the building administrator? Or council members' comments on? Okay, so Niall's hearing no objection, go forward. Ron, that's your next contract.
Okay.
Thank you. Niles, did you have anything else?
I think we covered pretty much everything going on, other than, the other thing that I just wanted to say is I'm going through and updating a few of the different things that we do in the office, processes and paperwork and things like that, just to make things a little bit more efficient. So that will be a process that will be ongoing, but I wanted to let everyone know that I'm going to be doing, and I am doing some of those things to make it more efficient and so on.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
2 months in.
2 months.
2 months in. 2 months in. Okay, well, we're now back to opportunity for resident comments, and there are a couple of new residents, or newer residents here. I don't know if you guys are so excited by this meeting, you might be jumping out of your seats to comment. Anything? Okay, well, thanks, Marty, to the election committee. Almost there. Keith, if you could work on the warm weather for the next few days, that'd be great.
I will be working on it for you, Tiffany.
Okay, any other council comments before we go?
No.
Okay, great. Well, meeting's adjourned at
Right.
8:22.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Keith.
Good night. Thank you.
Night, everybody. Thank you, Ben Niles, for the election work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Trying to get it on.
Yep, you'll get there.
Take care. Thanks, Niles.
You're welcome.
We're lucky to have you.
Why, thank you, Susan. All right. Let's first want to end meeting first, and then